Simone, baby, just hear me out. One night. Just one night, and then we can start our family like we planned. Simone Carter stared at her husband of 3 years, certain she had misheard him. The wine glass in her hand trembled as she set it down on their granite kitchen counter. Brandon stood across from her in their beautiful Atlanta home, the same man who had promised to love and cherish her forever, asking for permission to sleep with another woman. "What did you just say to me?" Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Brandon ran his hands through his dark hair, the same nervous gesture he'd done since college when they first met. "Look, I know how this sounds, but Rachel and we've been talking for months and—" "Months?" The word hit her like a physical blow. "You've been talking to another woman for months. It's not what you think. We worked together on the Morrison account, you know that. But somewhere along the way we developed feelings." Brandon moved closer, reaching for her hands, but Simone stepped back. "She's everything I've ever fantasized about, Simone. The things we could do together. I can't stop thinking about it." Simone felt the room spinning. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be her life. "So you want my permission to cheat on me? Just once. One night to get it out of my system, and then I'll be the husband you deserve. We can have our babies, buy that bigger house, everything we talked about. But I need this first." His brown eyes pleaded with her. "I need to know what it would be like with her." The beautiful African-American woman who had built a life with this man, who had supported his career dreams, who had put her own ambitions on hold to be the perfect wife, felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. "And if I say no?" Brandon looked away. "I'll always wonder. And that's not fair to you or our future children. But cheating on me is fair? It's just sex, Simone. One night. She means nothing beyond that." Simone looked around their kitchen with its custom cabinets and expensive appliances, all chosen together during happier times. The refrigerator held their vacation photos from Cabo, their anniversary dinner pictures, their families smiling together at Christmas. All of it felt like a lie now. "How long have you been sleeping with her already?" Brandon's silence answered her question. "So you're not asking for permission," she said slowly. "You're asking for forgiveness. Simone, get out of my kitchen." Her voice was steady now, ice cold. "Get out of my sight. Baby, please. Just think about it. One night and then we can move forward." She picked up her wine glass and for a moment Brandon flinched. But Simone simply walked past him toward their bedroom. "I said get out of my sight." That night, Simone lay in their king-sized bed staring at the ceiling while Brandon slept in the guest room. Her mind raced through 3 years of marriage looking for signs she had missed. The late nights at work. The new cologne. The way he had been distant during their intimate moments lately, like his mind was somewhere else. Or with someone else. She thought about Rachel Morrison, the petite blonde from Brandon's marketing firm. They had met at company parties, exchanged pleasantries about work and weather. Rachel had even complimented Simone's earrings once. The whole time she had been sleeping with Simone's husband. As dawn broke through their bedroom windows, Simone made a decision that would change everything. She wouldn't give Brandon one night. She wouldn't give him one more minute. But she also wouldn't let him see it coming. If Brandon wanted to play games, she would play to win. The next morning, Simone woke to the smell of bacon and coffee. Brandon was making breakfast as if nothing had happened. As if he hadn't just asked his wife for permission to cheat and admitted to months of betrayal. "Good morning, beautiful," he said when she entered the kitchen. His smile was bright, hopeful. "I made your favorite." Simone poured herself coffee and sat at their dining table. "We need to talk." "Of course." Brandon sat across from her, his expression eager. "Did you think about what I said?" "I thought about a lot of things." Simone sipped her coffee, studying his face. "Like how you've been lying to me for months." "How many times, Brandon?" "What do you mean?" "How many times have you slept with her?" Brandon shifted uncomfortably. "Does it matter?" "What matters is that I'm being honest with you now. Answer the question." "Maybe 15 times? 20? Look, it just happened, okay? We were working late, there was chemistry. 20 times." Simone set down her cup. 20 times you betrayed our marriage vows. 20 times you chose her over me. And now you want a reward for it. It's not a reward. It's closure. One perfect night with her, and then I'll never think about it again. Simone stared at this man she had loved, had trusted, had planned a future with. "And you honestly believe that's how it works?" "Yes, I do." The confidence in his voice made her stomach turn. He really believed he could have his fantasy night and then return to their marriage as if nothing had happened. He believed she would wait for him, grateful for his honesty. "I need time to process this," she said finally. Brandon's face lit up. Really? You'll consider it? I said I need time. After breakfast, Brandon left for work, kissing her forehead like he had every morning for 3 years. Simone waited until his car disappeared down their street, then grabbed his laptop from his home office. She knew his passwords. They had shared everything, or so she had thought. What she found made her physically sick. Months of emails between Brandon and Rachel, planning their encounters, discussing intimate details, even mocking Simone's trusting nature. In one message Rachel wrote, "Your wife is so naive. Does she really not suspect anything?" Brandon's response, "Simone trusts me completely. It's actually kind of sweet." Sweet. Her trust was sweet to them while they laughed behind her back. But it was the financial records that truly shocked her. Brandon and Rachel had been planning more than just sex. They had discussed starting a business together, using money from Brandon's account, money Simone had helped build during their marriage. They talked about vacations they wanted to take, places they wanted to see. Together. The phone records showed calls and texts at all hours. During Simone's birthday dinner, Brandon had texted Rachel, "Wish I was with you instead." While Simone was visiting her sick mother, Brandon was with Rachel at a hotel downtown. She printed everything. Every email, every text, every financial transaction. Then she called her best friend Tanya. "Girl, I need to see you. Now." An hour later, Tanya sat in Simone's living room, reading through the evidence with growing anger. "This is worse than just an affair, Simone. They're planning a whole life together. And he thinks I'm stupid enough to give him one night, and then pretend none of this exists. What are you going to do?" Simone looked at the wedding photo on her mantle, taken just 3 years ago. She had been so happy that day, so full of hope for their future. The woman in that photo would have begged Brandon to stay, would have blamed herself for not being enough. But that woman was gone. "I'm going to give him exactly what he deserves," Simone said. "Just not what he expects." That evening when Brandon came home, Simone was cooking his favorite dinner. He wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, pressing his face into her neck. "Have you made a decision?" "I'm still thinking," she said. "But I have some questions." "Anything." "This one night with Rachel. Where were you planning to have it?" Brandon's arms tightened around her. "I hadn't thought that far ahead." Another lie. She had seen the hotel reservations in his emails. "And after this one night, you'll cut off all contact with her?" "Absolutely. I promise." The biggest lie of all. They had already planned their next 3 meetings. "Okay," Simone said. "Let me think about it a little longer." Brandon spun her around, his face bright with hope and victory. "Really? Oh baby, I love you so much. This is going to make our marriage stronger, I promise." He kissed her then, and Simone let him. She even smiled and kissed him back. But inside she was already gone. Later that night, while Brandon slept peacefully beside her, Simone stared at the ceiling and planned her escape. He thought he was so clever, so smooth. He thought she was just another naive wife who would eventually give in to his selfish demands. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Simone took a personal day from her job at the accounting firm, telling Brandon she needed time to think about his proposal. Instead, she spent the day becoming a detective in her own life. First stop, their joint financial accounts. What she discovered made her blood run cold. Brandon hadn't just been having an affair, he had been funding it with their money. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, jewelry purchases that definitely weren't for her. Even a weekend trip to Nashville that he had told her was a work conference. She photographed every transaction and transferred them to a secure cloud account he couldn't access. Next, she drove to Rachel's apartment complex. She didn't plan to confront her, that would come later, and not in the way either of them expected. She just wanted to see where her husband's mistress lived, to understand the life he was choosing over theirs. The complex was nice, modern, with a pool and fitness center. Rachel drove a red BMW that was parked in spot 247. Simone memorized the license plate number, then sat in her car and waited. At 3:15 p.m., Rachel emerged wearing scrubs. She was a nurse at the hospital downtown, something Simone had forgotten. Pretty, blonde, petite, everything Simone wasn't. She watched Rachel drive away, then called the hospital. "Hi, I'm trying to reach Rachel Morrison in your cardiac unit," she said sweetly. "I'm sorry, but Rachel called in sick today," the receptionist replied. Sick. While Brandon was at work, Rachel was home, free to do whatever she pleased. Simone wondered how many sick days had been spent in hotel rooms with her husband. Her next stop was Brandon's office. She had visited enough times that the security guard recognized her and waved her through. She took the elevator to the 15th floor, walking past the cubicles and offices like she belonged there. Simone. What a surprise. Brandon's boss, Mr. Patterson, smiled warmly. Brandon didn't mention you were stopping by. I wanted to surprise him, she said. Is he in his office? He's in a client meeting with the Morrison account team. Should be done in about an hour. The Morrison account. Rachel's account. They were probably planning their next encounter right now, while Simone stood there smiling politely. Actually, I just remembered I have an appointment, Simone said. Could you tell him I stopped by? Of course. And Simone? You two make such a beautiful couple. Brandon's lucky to have you. If only he knew. On her way out, Simone stopped by the HR department. Hi, I'm Simone Carter, Brandon's wife. He asked me to drop off some paperwork for him. The HR representative, a middle-aged woman named Dorothy, smiled. Of course. How are you, dear? I'm well, thank you. Actually, I have a quick question. Brandon mentioned there might be some policy about employees dating each other? He was asking for a friend. Dorothy's expression grew serious. Oh yes, we have very strict policies about workplace relationships. Especially between employees working on the same accounts. It can create conflicts of interest, you know. Why does his friend ask? Just wondering. I'll let him know it's not allowed. Definitely not. We've had to terminate people for that kind of thing. The company takes it very seriously. Simone filed that information away for later use. That evening, she cooked Brandon's favorite meal again and listened to him talk about his day. He mentioned the client meeting but not who was there. He talked about upcoming projects but didn't mention Rachel once. You seem happier today, he observed. Does that mean you're warming up to my idea? I'm trying to understand it, she said carefully. This fantasy of yours with Rachel, what makes it so important? Brandon's eyes lit up with the kind of excitement she used to see when he talked about their future together. She's just so different from you, you know? Not better, just different. Wild, spontaneous. The things she suggested. He trailed off, realizing he was giving away too much. What kinds of things? Just, things we've never tried. Things I've always wondered about. Simone nodded as if considering this. And you really believe one night will be enough? I know it will. I just need to get it out of my system. She watched him eat the dinner she had prepared, watched him smile at her with complete confidence that she would eventually give him what he wanted. He had no idea that she already knew about the hotel reservations, the business plans, the mocking conversations about her naivety. Brandon, she said slowly, I want you to be completely honest with me about something. Of course. If I say yes to this and you have your night with Rachel, what happens to her afterward? Do you expect her to just disappear from your life? For the first time, Brandon looked uncomfortable. We worked together so we'd still see each other professionally. But that's all. And she's okay with that? One night and then nothing? She understands the situation. Another lie. Simone had read their messages. Rachel expected much more than one night. She expected Brandon to leave his wife eventually. Okay, Simone said finally. I'll give you my answer tomorrow. Brandon reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Whatever you decide, I love you. But I really hope you'll trust me on this. Trust him. The man who had been lying to her for months wanted her to trust him. That night, Simone made copies of everything she had gathered: financial records, phone records, emails, photos. She stored the originals in a safety deposit box Brandon didn't know about and sent copies to her email, her cloud storage, and Tanya's house. She was done being naive. She was done being the trusting wife who believed her husband's lies. Tomorrow she would give Brandon his answer. Just not the one he expected. Simone woke up before dawn, her plan crystallizing in her mind like ice forming on a window. She made coffee quietly, not wanting to wake Brandon, and sat at her laptop in the pre-dawn darkness. Her first email went to her boss at the accounting firm. I need to discuss some opportunities for advancement and possibly relocating to handle larger accounts. Her second email went to her college roommate Nina, who now worked for a major consulting firm in Chicago. Are you still looking for senior financial analysts? I might be interested in a change. Her third email went to the lawyer Tanya had recommended. I need a consultation about divorce proceedings and asset protection. By the time Brandon stumbled into the kitchen for his morning coffee, Simone had set 3 different plans in motion. Morning beautiful, he said, wrapping his arms around her. Did you sleep well? Like a baby. She turned in his arms and kissed him softly. Brandon, I've made my decision. His whole body tensed with anticipation. And? I'll give you your one night. The relief and joy that flooded his face was almost comical. Really? Oh my God, Simone, you have no idea how much this means to me. I love you so much. But I have conditions. Anything. Name it. I want it to happen this weekend. Get it over with so we can move forward. This weekend? Are you sure? That's fast. I don't want to drag this out, Brandon. If we're doing this, let's do it and be done. He nodded eagerly. Okay, yes. This weekend. And I want you to use protection. I don't care how clean you think she is. Of course. And Brandon? She looked directly into his eyes. After this weekend, I never want to hear her name again. You figure out how to work with her professionally, but she doesn't exist in our personal life. Ever. Absolutely. I promise. Good. She kissed him again. Now go to work. I have some errands to run. After Brandon left, practically skipping to his car, Simone got dressed and drove to the lawyer's office. Janet Morrison, no relation to Rachel, thankfully was a shark in a designer suit who came highly recommended by Tanya's divorce attorney friend. Mrs. Carter, I've reviewed the documents you sent over. Your husband has given you quite a gift with his honesty about the affair. How so? Adultery still matters in Georgia divorce proceedings, especially when there's financial misconduct involved. The money he spent on this affair, the business planning with his mistress, it all works in your favor. What about our assets? The house is in both names, but you've been contributing to the mortgage for 3 years. The investment accounts show equal contributions from both of you. We can fight for significant alimony based on his misconduct, and possibly get you more than half the marital assets. How long does the process take? If he fights it, months to a year. If he doesn't? Janet smiled. Much faster. He won't fight it, Simone said with certainty. He's going to be too busy dealing with other problems. Her next stop was the bank, where she opened a new individual account and transferred her half of their emergency savings. Legally, she was entitled to it and she might need it for legal fees and moving expenses. Then she drove to their joint business account, the one they had planned to use for starting a family, and transferred that money as well. Brandon had already contaminated it by using it for his affair expenses. She was just protecting what was left. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nina. We have a senior analyst position opening in 6 weeks. $85,000 starting salary, full relocation package. Interested? Simone texted back. Very interested. Can we set up a call tomorrow? Another text, this one from her current boss. Can you come in early tomorrow? I have a proposition about the Davidson Group contract you might find interesting. Everything was falling into place. That evening, Brandon came home with flowers and champagne. I thought we should celebrate, he said. This is going to make our marriage so much stronger, baby. I can feel it. Simone accepted the flowers with a smile. Did you talk to Rachel about this weekend? Yes. She's excited. Brandon looked almost guilty saying it, but also nervous. She knows how important you are to me. Does she? Simone arranged the flowers in a vase, thinking about all the messages where Rachel had mocked her. That's nice. Simone, I want you to know that Saturday night changes nothing about how I feel about you. You're still my wife, still the woman I want to have children with. I know. She kissed his cheek. I trust you. The lie came so easily now. That night, while Brandon showered, Simone went through his phone one more time. New messages from Rachel, planning their special night. The hotel was booked, the same one they had used for their previous encounters. Rachel had even bought new lingerie for the occasion. But it was the message from Brandon to Rachel that made Simone's blood run cold. Simone's finally agreed. Saturday is ours. I can't wait to show you what you mean to me. What you mean to me. Not, this means nothing. Not, it's just sex. This was a man telling his mistress she meant something to him while lying to his wife about it being meaningless. Simone screenshot the message and added it to her growing collection of evidence. On Friday morning, she would meet with her boss about a potential promotion and transfer. Friday afternoon, she had a phone interview with Nina's company. By the time Brandon was having his one night with Rachel on Saturday, Simone would be well on her way to building a new life. A life without him. But first, she had one more surprise to arrange for their special weekend. Friday morning brought unexpected good news. Simone's boss, Mr. Rodriguez, called her into his office with a proposal that exceeded her wildest expectations. The Davidson Group wants to establish a Southeast regional office, he explained. They need someone to head up their financial division, someone with your skills and experience. It's a promotion, significant salary increase, and they want to fast-track the right candidate. Where would this position be located? Charlotte, North Carolina. Beautiful city, great opportunities. He slid a folder across his desk. They're offering $95,000 to start, plus moving expenses, plus bonuses based on performance. Interested? Simone tried to keep her voice steady. Very interested. When would they need an answer? Next week. They want to move quickly on this. I'll have my answer by Monday. That afternoon, her phone interview with Nina's Chicago firm went even better. They were offering $85,000 plus relocation, but the position came with stock options and the potential for partnership track within 5 years. 2 offers. 2 escape routes. 2 new lives waiting for her. But first she had to survive the weekend. That evening, Brandon could barely contain his excitement. He had made dinner reservations for himself and Rachel at the most expensive restaurant in the city, the same place he had taken Simone for their anniversary last year. I'll be out late tomorrow night, he said, trying to sound casual. Really late. Don't wait up. I won't, Simone assured him. I'm thinking of having a girls' night with Tanya anyway. Perfect. That's perfect. Simone watched him practically vibrate with anticipation and felt nothing but disgust. This man who had promised to love and cherish her was counting down the hours until he could betray her with complete permission. Brandon, she said suddenly, I want you to know something. What's that, baby? After tomorrow night, everything changes between us. You understand that, right? His brow furrowed. Changes how? I can't explain it. I just want you to remember that I gave you exactly what you asked for. He kissed her forehead. You're the best wife a man could ask for. I'll make this up to you, I promise. Saturday morning, Simone woke early and made Brandon his favorite breakfast one last time. She watched him eat, studied his face, tried to remember why she had fallen in love with him all those years ago in college. That man was gone. Maybe he had never really existed. What time are you meeting Rachel? She asked. 7 for dinner. Then. He trailed off, looking embarrassed. Then you'll go to the hotel. Yes. Room 412 at the Grand Plaza downtown? Brandon's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. How did you? I may be trusting Brandon, but I'm not stupid. I know you've been there before. For a moment, panic flashed in his eyes. Then he recovered. Simone, I can explain. No need. You've been planning this for weeks. I know about the reservations, the special dinner, everything. She sipped her coffee calmly. I just want you to know that I know. Are you having second thoughts? Not at all. I want you to have your perfect night with Rachel. Every single thing you've planned. Relief flooded his face again. You're amazing. I don't deserve you. No, she agreed. You don't. After Brandon left for work, Simone made her final preparations. She packed a suitcase and put it in her car trunk. She transferred the last of her personal possessions to her new apartment, a furnished rental she had secured yesterday across town. Then she made 3 phone calls. The first was to Mr. Patterson, Brandon's boss. Hi, this is Simone Carter, Brandon's wife. I have some concerns about a potential ethics violation at your company that I think you need to know about. The second was to the hospital where Rachel worked. I'd like to speak to your HR department about a nurse who may be violating patient confidentiality and calling in sick under false pretenses. The third was to her attorney. Janet, it's time. File the papers Monday morning. At 4 p.m., Simone received the text she had been waiting for, heading to get ready for tonight. I love you, beautiful. She texted back, have the night of your life. You've earned it. Then she drove to Tanya's house, where her best friend was waiting with wine and Chinese takeout. Are you ready for this? Tanya asked. I've been ready since the moment he asked me for permission to cheat. Simone raised her wine glass. Here's to new beginnings. At exactly 7:03 p.m., Simone's phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Carter? This is Mr. Patterson from Brandon's office. I think we need to talk immediately. Can you come in? Is everything all right? I'm afraid not. How quickly can you get here? Simone smiled at Tanya. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Phase 1 of her plan was complete. Brandon was probably just sitting down to dinner with Rachel, celebrating what he thought would be his night of freedom. He had no idea that by morning his entire world would be in ruins. The elevator to the 15th floor seemed to move in slow motion. Simone's heels clicked against the marble floor of Brandon's office building as she walked toward what she knew would be a life-changing conversation. Mr. Patterson was waiting in the conference room with 2 other executives and a woman from HR. The expressions on their faces told Simone everything she needed to know. Mrs. Carter, please sit down. Mr. Patterson gestured to a chair across from them. We've just learned some very disturbing information about your husband and Ms. Rachel Morrison. Oh. Simone sat down, crossing her legs elegantly. What kind of information? Evidence of a romantic relationship between two employees working on the same account. Financial misconduct involving client entertainment expenses. Fraudulent sick leave claims. He slid a folder across the table. Someone sent these to our ethics hotline this afternoon. Simone opened the folder and pretended to see the evidence for the first time. Her own carefully compiled documentation stared back at her emails, financial records, phone logs, even photos of Brandon and Rachel entering hotels together during work hours. I don't understand, she said, letting her voice tremble slightly. Are you saying my husband is having an affair? I'm afraid that's exactly what we're saying. Mrs. Carter, I am so sorry. I had no idea. The HR representative leaned forward. The company takes this very seriously. We've already suspended both employees pending a full investigation. Suspended? As of 1 hour ago. Security has been notified to revoke their building access immediately. Simone felt a surge of satisfaction. Right now, Brandon was sitting in that expensive restaurant, probably wondering why his credit card had just been declined and why his company cell phone had stopped working. What happens next? She asked. Given the severity of the misconduct and the financial improprieties involved, termination is almost certain, Mr. Patterson said grimly. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. Simone dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I just can't believe this is happening. If you need any support resources, counseling services, anything at all, please let us know. Actually, Simone said slowly, there is one thing. I'm going to need some time to figure out my next steps. I may need to relocate, start over somewhere new. Of course, whatever you need. I've actually been offered a position with the Davidson Group in Charlotte. If you could provide a reference. Absolutely. You're an outstanding professional, and none of this reflects on you in any way. Simone left the building an hour later with a glowing letter of recommendation and the satisfaction of knowing that Brandon's career was officially over. Her phone had been buzzing with frantic calls and texts, but she ignored them all. Back at Tanya's house, she finally listened to Brandon's voicemails. Simone, something weird happened at dinner. My card got declined and then my phone service got cut off. I'm calling from Rachel's phone. Call me back. Baby, I can't reach you. There's some kind of problem at work. They're saying I'm suspended? This makes no sense. We need to talk. Simone, please call me. Rachel's phone got cut off too. Something is very wrong. I'm coming home. The last message was from 20 minutes ago. Brandon was probably pulling into their driveway right now, finding an empty house and no wife waiting for him. Phase 2 complete, she told Tanya. Want to hear Phase 3? At 11 p.m. Simone's phone rang. This time she answered. Brandon? Where are you? His voice was panicked, desperate. I came home and you're not here. Your clothes are gone from the closet. What's happening? I'm at Tanya's house. What? Simone, my job is gone. They fired me. They fired Rachel too. Someone sent them all this evidence about our relationship and... I know. You know? How could you possibly know? Simone took a deep breath. Because I sent it to them. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long she wondered if the call had dropped. What did you just say? Brandon's voice was barely a whisper. I sent HR all the evidence of your affair, Brandon. The emails, the financial records, the photos of you two at hotels during work hours. Everything. But you gave me permission. You said I could have tonight with her. I said you could have the night of your life. And you did, didn't you? Right up until your credit card stopped working at dinner. Simone, this is insane. You can't just destroy my career because what? Because you've been cheating on me for months? Because you used our money to fund your affair? Because you asked your wife for permission to betray her and expected me to smile and thank you for your honesty? But you said yes. I lied. The words felt delicious coming out of her mouth. Just like you've been lying to me for months. How does it feel, Brandon? How does it feel to be betrayed by someone you trust? Where are you living? When are you coming home? I'm not. I've rented an apartment across town. Tomorrow I'm driving to Charlotte to start my new job. By the time you get this call, I'll already be gone. New job? Simone, you can't just leave. We're married. We can work through this. No, we can't. I've already filed for divorce. You'll be served with papers on Monday. She could hear him breathing heavily, trying to process what was happening. This is crazy. You're being crazy. One mistake, one affair, and you're willing to throw away 3 years of marriage. One mistake. Simone laughed, and it sounded sharp even to her own ears. Brandon, you had 20 sexual encounters with another woman. You spent thousands of our dollars on her. You planned a business and a future with her. You mocked me in text messages and called me naive and sweet. That's not one mistake. That's a complete betrayal of everything we promised each other. How did you? I know about everything, Brandon. The business plans, the vacation you want to take with her, the way you told her you wish you were with her instead of me on my own birthday. I know it all. Simone, please. Don't do this. We can go to counseling. I'll quit my job. Well, I guess I already lost my job, but we can move somewhere new, start fresh. There is no we anymore. You chose Rachel. You chose her 20 times over 20 different nights. You chose her when you asked me for permission to be with her. You chose her over our marriage, over our future, over me. I chose you. I came back to you. You came back to your safety net. You came back to the naive, trusting wife who would always be there no matter how badly you treated her. But that woman is gone, Brandon. You killed her when you asked for your one perfect night. She could hear him crying now. Please don't do this. I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you. If you loved me, you never would have asked what you asked. If you loved me, you would have ended the affair and begged for my forgiveness. Instead, you asked me to become a willing participant in my own humiliation. Simone. Goodbye, Brandon. Enjoy your one perfect night. It cost you everything. She hung up and turned off her phone. Tanya handed her another glass of wine. How do you feel? Simone looked out the window at the city lights, thinking about her new apartment, her new job, her new life waiting for her in Charlotte. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. Free, she said. I feel completely free. 3 months later, Simone stood in her corner office on the 23rd floor of the Davidson Group building in Charlotte, looking out at the Blue Ridge Mountains in the distance. The view never got old, and neither did the satisfaction of knowing she had built this new life entirely on her own terms. Her assistant knocked on the door. Miss Carter? Your 2 o'clock is here. Send him in, please. The Davidson Group had been everything they promised and more. Simone had quickly established herself as an invaluable asset, streamlining their financial operations and bringing in 3 major new accounts in her first 90 days. Her boss had already mentioned the possibility of a partnership track. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tanya. Saw the article about you in the Charlotte Business Journal. Rising stars in finance. I'm so proud of you. The article had been a surprise. Apparently, her success at Davidson Group had caught the attention of the local business community. She was featured alongside 5 other young professionals who were making waves in their industries. Another text, this one from her divorce attorney. Final decree signed by judge today. It's official, you're free. The divorce had been swift and decisive, just as Janet had predicted. Brandon hadn't fought it, possibly because he was too busy dealing with his own professional and legal troubles. The affair scandal had made him unhireable at every major firm in Atlanta. Last she heard, he was working at a small accounting office for half his previous salary. Rachel hadn't fared much better. The hospital had terminated her employment after discovering she had falsified sick leave claims to meet Brandon for their hotel encounters. Her nursing license was under review, and she was facing potential legal action. But Simone tried not to think about them anymore. They were part of her old life, the life she had left behind when she drove out of Atlanta 3 months ago with everything she owned packed into her car. Her new life was everything she had dreamed of and more. At 5 p.m., she left the office and drove to her apartment in the historic district of Charlotte. It was a beautiful space, high ceilings, original hardwood floors, and a balcony that overlooked the city. Nothing like the house she had shared with Brandon, which according to Tanya had gone into foreclosure last month. She had dinner plans tonight with James, a pediatrician she had met at a charity fundraiser last month. He was kind, intelligent, and most importantly, honest. Their relationship was still new, still cautious, but it felt healthy in a way that her marriage to Brandon never had. You look beautiful, James said when she opened her door. He was holding a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorites, which she had mentioned in passing during their second date. Thank you. These are perfect. Over dinner at a cozy restaurant in the Arts District, James told her about his day at the Children's Hospital, and she shared news about her latest project at work. The conversation flowed easily, without any of the tension or hidden agendas that had characterized her final months with Brandon. I have something to tell you, James said as they shared dessert. I got a call from Johns Hopkins today. They're offering me a position heading up their new pediatric cardiology program. Simone's heart sank a little. That's wonderful. It sounds like an incredible opportunity. It is. But I turned it down. What? Why? James reached across the table and took her hand. Because I'm building something here in Charlotte that I don't want to leave behind. The implication in his words made her pulse quicken, but she had learned to be cautious about men and their promises. James, we've only been dating for a month. I know. And I'm not asking you to make any decisions or commitments. I'm just telling you that what we have is worth more to me than any career advancement. The difference between James and Brandon was stark. Brandon had been willing to throw away their marriage for a fantasy. James was willing to turn down his dream job for the possibility of something real with her. What if we don't work out? She asked. What if you regret staying here? Then I'll regret it. But at least I'll know I tried for something that mattered. That night, after James walked her to her door with a gentle goodnight kiss, Simone sat on her balcony with a cup of tea and thought about how dramatically her life had changed. 6 months ago, she had been a faithful wife planning to start a family with a man who saw her as a safety net while he pursued his real desires with someone else. She had been small, diminished, grateful for whatever scraps of attention and affection he threw her way. Now she was a successful executive in her own right, living in a beautiful city, dating a man who chose her over his ambitions instead of asking her to accommodate his betrayals. Her phone rang, disrupting her thoughts. Unknown number, but she recognized the Atlanta area code. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello. Simone, it's me. Brandon's voice sent a chill through her, but not the kind she expected. Not fear or heartbreak or longing. Just irritation at having her peaceful evening interrupted. How did you get this number? I hired a private investigator to find you. Simone, we need to talk. No, we don't. We're divorced, Brandon. We have nothing to talk about. Yes, we do. This is important. I'm in trouble, real trouble, and I need your help. What kind of trouble? The IRS is auditing me. They found some discrepancies in our joint tax returns from the past 3 years. They think I was hiding income or misreporting expenses. Were you? That's not the point. The point is you signed those returns too. You could be held liable. Simone felt a familiar cold anger settle in her chest. So let me understand this. You called me 6 months after I left you, to tell me that your financial misconduct might now become my problem too. It's not my fault. My accountant. Your accountant advised you to spend $10,000 of undeclared income on hotel rooms and jewelry for your mistress? How did you never mind? Look, I can make this go away if you help me pay for a good tax attorney. $20,000 should cover it. Simone actually laughed. You want me to give you $20,000? It's for both of us, Simone. If this audit goes bad, it could hurt your credit, your new job, everything you've built. Let me be very clear, Brandon. I will not give you one penny. If the IRS has questions about our tax returns, they can contact my attorney. But you and I have nothing to discuss. Simone, please. I'm desperate here. I lost my job, I lost my house. Rachel left me for some doctor she met at a bar. I have nothing left. That's what happens when you destroy your life for a fantasy that was never real to begin with. Don't you feel anything for me? 3 years of marriage has to count for something. Simone looked out at the Charlotte skyline, twinkling in the darkness. You know what I feel, Brandon? Grateful. Grateful that you asked me for that one night with Rachel because it showed me exactly who you really were. Grateful that you destroyed our marriage because it forced me to build a better life without you. I never meant for any of this to happen. Yes, you did. You meant for all of it to happen. You just thought I'd be there to clean up the mess afterward like I always did. But I'm not that woman anymore. She hung up and blocked his number. A few minutes later, James texted, "Had a wonderful time tonight. Sweet dreams, beautiful." Simone smiled and texted back, "Sweet dreams to you too." Then she went inside, locked the door on her old life once and for all, and started planning for tomorrow. 1 year later, Simone stood at the podium of the Charlotte Convention Center, addressing a crowd of 500 business leaders at the annual Southeast Finance Summit. The banner behind her read, Carter Consulting Group Strategic Financial Solutions. When I first arrived in Charlotte 18 months ago, she began, I was running away from a life that no longer served me. Today I'm here to talk about the power of transformation, not just personal transformation but the transformation of how we approach business relationships, financial planning, and professional ethics. The audience was rapt. Simone had become something of a legend in Charlotte business circles. After 18 months with the Davidson Group, she had struck out on her own, founding a consulting firm that now employed 12 people and served clients across 3 states. The foundation of any successful business relationship is trust, she continued. And trust, once broken, can never be fully repaired. It can only be replaced by building new relationships based on transparency, accountability, and mutual respect. After her presentation, she was swarmed by potential clients and speaking requests. Her assistant, Rebecca, helped manage the crowd and schedule follow-up meetings. Ms. Carter, a young woman, approached her during the networking break. "I'm Jessica Kim from Charlotte Business Weekly. Could I get a few minutes for an interview? We're doing a feature on women entrepreneurs who are changing the business landscape." Of course. 20 minutes later, they sat in a quiet corner of the convention center cafe. "Your rise has been meteoric," Jessica said. 18 months ago you were an employee. Now you're running one of the fastest growing consulting firms in the region. What's your secret?" Simone smiled. "Authenticity. I spent years trying to be who I thought other people wanted me to be. When I finally started being exactly who I am, no compromises, no pretending, everything changed." "There are rumors that you left Atlanta under difficult circumstances. Care to comment?" "I left Atlanta because staying there meant staying small. Sometimes you have to burn down your old life to build the one you deserve." "And personally?" "The rumor mill says you're engaged to Dr. James Morrison from Presbyterian Hospital." Simone looked down at the modest diamond ring on her left finger. James had proposed 3 months ago on the anniversary of their first date, in the same restaurant where he had told her he was turning down Johns Hopkins to stay in Charlotte with her. "Dr. Morrison and I are very happy," she said simply. After the interview, Simone drove back to her new house, a beautiful modern home in the Myers Park neighborhood that she had purchased entirely with her own earnings. James was already there, cooking dinner and reading medical journals at the kitchen island. "How did the presentation go?" He kissed her as she walked in. "Better than expected. I think we landed 3 new clients just from the networking afterward. I'm so proud of you." He handed her a glass of wine. "Oh, and you got some interesting mail today." He pointed to a thick envelope on the counter, addressed in handwriting she didn't recognize. The return address made her freeze. Morrison and Associates Tax Services, Atlanta, Georgia. "Who's it from?" James asked, noticing her expression. "My ex-husband's tax attorney, I think." She opened the envelope with a sense of dread. Inside was a legal document, a subpoena requesting her presence at a deposition regarding financial irregularities and potential tax fraud, in connection with Brandon Carter's audit. There was also a handwritten note. "Simone, I know we haven't spoken since you hung up on me, but this is serious. The IRS found evidence that I was using our joint accounts to hide income from side consulting work. They think you knew about it. I told them you didn't, but they want to question you anyway. Please call me. We need to coordinate our stories. Brandon." James read over her shoulder. "What kind of side consulting?" "I have no idea. But knowing Brandon, it was probably something shady." Simone crumpled the note. "He wants me to coordinate stories with him. Even now, he thinks I'll lie for him." "Will you?" "James, I will tell the absolute truth under oath, just like I always have. If Brandon committed tax fraud, that's his problem, not mine." The next morning, Simone called her attorney in Atlanta. "Janet, I got a subpoena yesterday." "I know. The prosecutor's office called me." "Don't worry, this is routine. They're just being thorough." "What exactly is Brandon accused of?" "Running an under-the-table consulting business while employed at his previous firm. Apparently he was doing work for competitors and not reporting the income. The IRS estimates he hid about $150,000 over 3 years." $150,000? Simone was stunned. "I never saw that money." "I know. Your financial records are clean. But you did sign the joint tax returns, so they have to verify that you weren't complicit." "When's the deposition?" "Next Friday in Atlanta. 1 day in and out. And if I tell the truth that I knew nothing about any unreported income? Then you're fine. Brandon, on the other hand, is looking at possible jail time." Simone felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of her was angry that Brandon's continued poor decisions were still affecting her life. But part of her felt sad for the man she had once loved, who seemed determined to destroy every good thing he had ever had. That evening she told James about the deposition. "Do you want me to come with you?" he asked. "To Atlanta?" "No, that's not necessary. I mean for moral support. I know this has to be hard, dealing with your ex again." Simone considered this. "Actually, you know what? Yes. I'd like you to come with me. Not to the deposition, but maybe we could make a weekend of it. I'd like to show you where I used to live, introduce you to Tanya." "I'd love that." A week later, as their plane descended into Atlanta, Simone looked out the window at the city where her old life had died and her new one had been born. She wasn't the same woman who had left 18 months ago. That woman had been broken, betrayed, and running away from her problems. This woman was successful, confident, and facing her past head-on. The deposition the next day was straightforward. Simone answered every question honestly. No, she had never known about Brandon's side consulting business. No, she had never seen the unreported income. No, she had never been asked to sign false documents or hide money. The prosecutor seemed satisfied with her testimony. As she left the building, she saw Brandon waiting in the hallway with his attorney. He looked older, tired, worn down by months of legal troubles. "Simone," he called out as she passed. She stopped and turned to face him. "Brandon. How are you?" "I'm well. You?" He gestured helplessly at the courthouse around them. "Been better." They stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then Brandon said, "I heard about your business. Congratulations. I always knew you were brilliant." "Thank you. I also heard you're getting married." "I am." "Is he good to you?" The question surprised her with its sincerity. "Yes. He's very good to me." Brandon nodded. "Good. That's good. You deserve that." "Brandon, I hope you figure things out." "I really do." "Thanks. And Simone? For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. I was an idiot and I lost the best thing that ever happened to me." "You didn't lose me, Brandon. You threw me away. But it worked out for the best. For both of us, I think." As she walked away, Simone felt a sense of closure she hadn't expected. The man she had once loved was still there somewhere inside Brandon, buried under years of bad decisions and selfishness. But that wasn't her problem to solve anymore. She had her own life to build, and it was turning out to be more beautiful than she had ever imagined. 2 years after leaving Atlanta, Simone stood in the bridal suite of the Charlotte Country Club, adjusting her wedding dress in the full-length mirror. The gown was simple but elegant ivory silk with delicate beading, nothing like the elaborate princess dress she had worn for her first wedding. "You look absolutely radiant," Tanya said, fastening the pearl necklace that had belonged to Simone's grandmother. "I can't believe how much your life has changed." "I can barely believe it myself," Simone replied, smoothing the silk over her hips. Through the window, she could see guests arriving for the ceremony. James's family, her family, friends from Charlotte, colleagues from the business community. Her consulting firm was now one of the top financial advisory companies in the Southeast. She employed 23 people, had offices in Charlotte and Raleigh, and was considering expansion into Nashville. Last month, she had been featured on the cover of Southern Business magazine as Entrepreneur of the Year. "Have you heard anything from him?" Tanya asked quietly. Simone knew she meant Brandon. "No. Nothing since the courthouse 2 years ago." In fact, she had heard about Brandon through mutual acquaintances. The IRS case had resulted in 2 years of probation and a hefty fine. He had eventually found work with a small tax preparation service in Marietta, making a fraction of his former salary. Rachel had moved to Florida and was working as a nurse again under a different name. But none of that mattered to Simone anymore. That chapter of her life was closed, filed away in a mental box marked Lessons Learned. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Rebecca, her assistant and now maid of honor, peeked in. "It's time, boss." The ceremony was held in the country club's rose garden, with the Charlotte skyline providing a dramatic backdrop. As Simone walked down the aisle on her father's arm, she saw James waiting for her at the altar, tears in his eyes and love written all over his face. The officiant was Pastor Williams from James's church, a kind man who had spent hours counseling them about marriage, communication, and building a life together based on mutual respect and honesty. "Marriage is not just about love," Pastor Williams said during the ceremony. "Love is the foundation, but marriage is built on trust, commitment, and the daily choice to put your partner's needs alongside your own." James and Simone have already shown they understand this principle. As they exchanged vows, Simone looked into James's eyes and saw her future not as someone's safety net or consolation prize, but as an equal partner in building something beautiful together. "I promise to choose you every day," James said, his voice steady and sure. "Not because it's easy but because you're worth fighting for. I promise to build dreams with you, not ask you to accommodate mine." "I promise to be vulnerable with you," Simone replied, "to trust you with my heart completely. I promise to grow alongside you and support your dreams while never diminishing my own." When they kissed, the crowd erupted in cheers. As they walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Simone felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this moment. The reception was a celebration of not just their marriage, but of the life Simone had built from the ashes of her first one. Colleagues spoke about her business acumen and integrity. Friends told stories of her generosity and strength. James's medical colleagues joked about how he talked about her constantly and how much happier he'd been since they met. During the father-daughter dance, Simone's dad pulled her close. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Not just for the business success but for the woman you've become. You could have let what Brandon did make you bitter and closed off. Instead, you used it to become stronger." "He actually did me a favor," Simone said. "If he hadn't been so spectacularly selfish, I might never have learned what I was truly capable of." Later that evening, as the reception wound down, Simone stepped onto the terrace for a moment of quiet reflection. The Charlotte skyline glittered in the distance, and she thought about the scared, heartbroken woman who had arrived here 3 years ago with nothing but a suitcase and a determination to start over. "There you are," James said, joining her on the terrace. "Having second thoughts?" "Never," she said, leaning into his embrace. "Just thinking about how far I've traveled to get here." "Any regrets?" Simone considered the question seriously. "No. Not even about Brandon, believe it or not. If he hadn't shown me exactly what I didn't want, I might never have recognized what I did want when I found it." "What did you want?" "A partner who sees me as I am and loves me for it. Someone who chooses me not as a backup plan but as a first choice, every single day." James kissed the top of her head. "You've got that, Mrs. Morrison. For the rest of our lives." As they stood there together, looking out over the city that had become her home, Simone's phone buzzed with a notification. She almost ignored it, but something made her glance at the screen. It was a LinkedIn notification. "Brandon Carter has sent you a connection request." She showed James the screen. "Even now, he thinks we have some kind of connection. What are you going to do?" Simone smiled and deleted the notification without opening it. "Nothing. He's not part of my life anymore." She turned off her phone and slipped it into her purse. Tonight was about celebrating the future, not revisiting the past. As they rejoined their wedding guests, Simone felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had taken the worst betrayal of her life and transformed it into the foundation of something beautiful. She had refused to let Brandon's selfishness make her smaller or more fearful. Instead, she had become exactly who she was meant to be: successful, confident, and deeply loved by a man who would never ask her to diminish herself to accommodate his weaknesses. The scared, trusting woman who had once begged her husband not to cheat had evolved into a force of nature who built empires and commanded respect. And she had never looked back. 5 years after her wedding to James, Simone stood at the podium of the Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, delivering the keynote address at the National Women in Business Conference. The irony of returning to Atlanta as the featured speaker at one of the most prestigious business events in the Southeast was not lost on her. "5 years ago," she began, "I stood in this very city with nothing but a suitcase, a broken heart, and a determination to rebuild my life from scratch. Today, I'm here to tell you that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can become the best thing that ever happened to you if you're willing to do the work." The audience of 1,200 businesswomen hung on every word. Simone's story had become legendary in entrepreneurial circles. The woman who had transformed a devastating divorce into a multi-million-dollar consulting empire. Carter Consulting Group now had offices in 5 cities, employed over 70 people, and had been acquired by a major financial services firm for an undisclosed sum that had made Simone independently wealthy. She remained as CEO and had used her newfound resources to launch a foundation supporting women entrepreneurs leaving abusive relationships. "The greatest gift my ex-husband ever gave me was showing me exactly what I wouldn't accept anymore," she continued. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When they ask you to compromise your dignity, walk away. When they treat you like a backup plan, show them what they're missing by becoming everything you were meant to be." After her presentation, Simone was surrounded by women wanting to share their own stories, ask for advice, or simply shake the hand of someone who had turned their life around so completely. "Miss Carter, you've inspired so many women to leave bad situations," a young woman said. "What would you say to women who are afraid to start over?" "I'd tell them that fear is just excitement without breath," Simone replied. "The scariest decisions often lead to the most beautiful outcomes. You're never too old, too invested, or too far gone to choose differently." Later that evening at the conference gala, Simone sat at the head table with other honorees, including several Fortune 500 CEOs and a former Secretary of State. James, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, was by her side, beaming with pride as she received the Lifetime Achievement Award for Entrepreneurial Excellence. "When I married this woman," James said during his brief speech before presenting her award, "I knew I was getting someone special. What I didn't know was that I was marrying someone who would revolutionize an entire industry while making it look effortless. As Simone accepted the crystal trophy, she looked out at the crowd of accomplished women and felt a profound sense of purpose. Her journey from betrayed wife to celebrated entrepreneur had become a roadmap for others facing their own dark nights of the soul. The next morning, as they prepared to fly back to Charlotte, Simone's phone rang. It was Tanya, calling from her new home in Los Angeles where she had relocated for her own career advancement. "Girl, I just saw the coverage of your speech online. CNN, Forbes, even the Today Show picked it up. You're everywhere." "It's surreal," Simone admitted. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life." "Have you seen the other news from Atlanta?" "What news?" "Brandon's in the paper." "Well, the business section. His little tax service got shut down by the IRS for more violations. Third time in 5 years. Word is he's completely unemployable now." Simone felt a twinge of something, not sadness exactly, but a kind of distant pity for the man who had once been her whole world. "What about Rachel?" "Married some guy in Florida. Divorced him 6 months later. Last I heard, she was working at an urgent care clinic somewhere near Tampa." "Well," Simone said, "I hope they both find peace eventually. You're a better woman than me. After what they put you through. They gave me the greatest gift of all, Tanya. They set me free to become who I was always meant to be." That afternoon, as their plane lifted off from Atlanta, Simone looked down at the city where her old life had died and her new one had been born. She thought about the terrified, heartbroken woman who had once lived there, who had begged her husband not to destroy their marriage, who had been willing to accept scraps of love and call it enough. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more successful. Someone who had learned that the only person responsible for your happiness is you, and that sometimes you have to lose everything to gain everything. James reached over and took her hand. "Penny, for your thoughts. Just thinking about how grateful I am for the journey that brought us together. Even the painful parts? Especially the painful parts. They taught me what real love looks like." As they flew toward Charlotte, toward their beautiful home and their thriving careers and the life they had built together as true equals, Simone reflected on the incredible transformation of the past 8 years. She had gone from begging her husband not to cheat to building a business empire. From accepting betrayal as the price of love to demanding respect as the foundation of partnership. From seeing herself through someone else's diminishing lens to recognizing her own infinite worth. The woman who had once asked for permission to exist in her own marriage now commanded rooms full of the most powerful people in business. The woman who had once made herself smaller to avoid conflict now took up space unapologetically and inspired others to do the same. And the most beautiful part? She had done it all without becoming bitter or closed off. She had kept her heart open to real love when it arrived in the form of James Morrison, who chose her every single day not as a consolation prize but as his greatest victory. Her phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. 3 more speaking requests came in this morning. Harvard Business School wants you for their Women's Leadership Summit. Also, that publisher wants to discuss the book deal again. A book. The story of how she had transformed betrayal into triumph, how she had built an empire from the ashes of her broken marriage. It would help other women see that their worst moments could become their turning points, that they didn't have to accept less than they deserved. She looked at James, who was reading a medical journal and occasionally glancing out the window. In a few hours they would be home in Charlotte, in the life they had built together based on honesty, respect, and genuine partnership. Tonight they would have dinner at their favorite restaurant, and James would ask about her day and really listen to the answer. He would tell her about the children he had helped at the hospital, and she would feel proud to be married to someone who saved lives for a living. Later they would sit on their back porch with glasses of wine and plan their weekend, their next vacation, their hopes for the future. They would go to bed as partners who chose each other freely every single day. It was a far cry from the marriage where she had been taken for granted, lied to, and ultimately asked to enable her own humiliation. As the plane began its descent into Charlotte, Simone smiled and squeezed James's hand. She had given Brandon his one perfect night, just as she had promised. But in return she had given herself something infinitely more valuable. A perfect life built on her own terms with a man who saw her worth and celebrated it every single day. The scared, broken woman who had left Atlanta 8 years ago was gone forever, replaced by a force of nature who had turned her greatest betrayal into her greatest triumph. And she had never looked back.